I'm 88 years old and I was married for 52 years to a woman I never truly loved. That's not something people expect you to say at this age. They expect stories about devotion, enduring love, growing old together. I can give you the facts of those things, but I can't give you the feeling. I'm not telling this to clear my conscience. That won't happen. I'm telling it because at 88, there isn't much use in pretending anymore. Most of the people who would be hurt by my honesty are already gone, and the ones who are left, they probably sensed it anyway. My wife died 9 years ago. Her name was Margaret. She was a decent woman, steady, kind in the practical ways. She kept a clean house, remembered birthdays, sat in the front pew at church every Sunday. I respected her. I just never loved her. When you say something like that out loud, it sounds cruel. I know that. But there's a difference between cruelty and truth. I spent most of my life choosing what looked right over what felt right. That was my pattern. I met Margaret when I was 23. It was 1961. I had just started working at the hardware supply warehouse in town. It wasn't glamorous, but it was stable. My father believed in stable. He worked 41 years at the same plant and thought that was the definition of a good life. Margaret worked at the bank. We were introduced at a church picnic. She wore a blue dress. She laughed easily. She seemed to like me. At that age, being liked feels like love. We went to the movies. We had milkshakes at the diner. We sat in my car and talked about small things. She wanted children. I assumed I did too. That's just what people did. There wasn't a lightning bolt. No moment where I thought, she's the one. But there also wasn't a reason not to marry her. That's how it happened. I proposed because it was time. Because my friends were getting engaged, because my mother adored her, because Margaret looked at me like I was a safe future. I mistook comfort for compatibility. We married when I was 25, she was 22. We moved into a small house with yellow siding and a crooked mailbox. I can still see it clearly. The first year was fine. We were busy learning how to share space, arguing about curtains, figuring out bills. She would hum while cooking. I would read the newspaper at the kitchen table. Nothing was wrong. That's important to say. Nothing dramatic happened. There was no betrayal, no shouting matches, no slammed doors. Just a quiet absence I didn't know how to name. I remember one evening, maybe 2 years in, we were sitting on the couch. The television was on, but neither of us was watching it. She rested her head on my shoulder. I felt neutral. Not irritated, not moved, just neutral. I told myself that was maturity, that passion was for teenagers, that this steady, lukewarm feeling was what adult love looked like. When our first child was born, a daughter, I thought maybe something would click into place. And with her, it did. I loved that baby fiercely. I would hold her at night and feel something sharp and undeniable, but that feeling never transferred back to my wife. Margaret became mother, the organizer, the scheduler, the one who remembered who needed new shoes. I became father, the provider, the man who left at 7:15 every morning and came home at 6 to us. We operated like a well-run business. People admired us. They said we were solid, dependable, a good team. And we were a team, that's true, but teams don't always love each other. In my 30s, there was a woman at work named Elaine. She worked in accounting. She was sharp, quick with a joke, and when she looked at me, I felt something wake up. I didn't have an affair. I want to be clear about that. I never crossed that line, but I thought about it more than once. I would sit at my desk after hours, imagining what it would be like to talk to someone who felt alive to me. Someone who didn't just share a mortgage and a grocery list. Then I would drive home. Margaret would be stirring a pot on the stove, and the kids would be doing homework. The house would smell like onions and soap, and I would swallow whatever I had been feeling. I told myself this was what being a good man meant, choosing duty over desire. Years passed that way, quietly, efficiently. We raised 3 children, we attended weddings, we buried parents, we paid off the house, we never embarrassed each other in public. But there were moments, small ones, that I ignored. Margaret would sometimes reach for my hand in bed, and I would pretend to be asleep. She would suggest a weekend trip, just the 2 of us, and I would say work was too busy. Once, on our 25th anniversary, she asked me, "Are you happy?" I laughed. I said, "Of course I am." She nodded, but she didn't look convinced. I don't know if she felt the absence too, or if she simply accepted what she had. She never confronted me, never demanded more. Maybe that was part of the problem. There was no explosion to force a decision, just a slow settling. By the time I was 50, it felt too late to change anything. Our children were in high school. Our lives were braided together in practical ways. Divorce would have been a scandal in our circle. It would have hurt everyone. So I stayed. I told myself I was being honorable. But if I'm honest, I was also being afraid of starting over, afraid of being alone, afraid of admitting that I had built half a life on something incomplete. Margaret aged gently. She kept her routines, she clipped coupons, she saved every birthday card the children gave her. I began to notice how rarely we laughed together. Not polite laughter, real laughter. I would hear other couples teasing each other, sharing private jokes, and I would feel something close to envy. Still I stayed. When we reached our 50th anniversary, the family threw a party. There were speeches about commitment, about enduring love. Our grandchildren handed us a framed photo of the 2 of us on our wedding day. Margaret cried. I looked at that young man in the photograph and wondered what would have happened if he had been braver. 2 years later, she was diagnosed with ovarian cancer. That's when clarity began to creep in. Illness strips away the surface of things, the routines fall apart, the pretending becomes harder. I sat beside her hospital bed while machines hummed. She looked smaller, fragile in a way I had never seen. One night she woke up and said, very softly, "Did we have a good life?" I said yes. I said it quickly, automatically. She studied my face for a long time. I don't know what she saw there. "I loved you," she said. That sentence has followed me for 9 years. I squeezed her hand. I told her I loved her too. And in that moment, I hated myself. Not because I didn't care for her. I did. I cared deeply about her comfort, her safety, her peace. But the kind of love she meant, the kind that fills a room, I don't know if I ever gave her that. She died 3 months later. The house became unbearably quiet. People assume that if you didn't love someone fully, their absence won't ache. That isn't true. I had shared a lifetime of habits with her. Her slippers by the door, her handwriting on the calendar, the sound of her cough in the morning. Loneliness doesn't ask whether love was passionate. It just arrives. In the years since, I've had a lot of time to think. That's what old age gives you. Long afternoons with memory. Here is what I've come to understand. Staying wasn't the mistake. Pretending was. If I had spoken honestly in our 30s, maybe we could have found something real. Or maybe we would have parted kindly, I don't know. But at least she would have known where she stood. Instead, I gave her a version of marriage that looked complete from the outside and hollow in certain corners. And she deserved more than that. What can't be fixed is this. I can't go back and tell her the truth when it might have mattered. I can't ask her what she felt all those years. I can't know whether she sensed my distance and chose silence to keep the peace. I also can't reclaim the parts of myself I set aside. There was a version of me who might have taken a risk, who might have said, "This isn't enough." I silenced him early. At 88, there isn't time to rewrite a life. There's only time to examine it. If you're listening to this and you're young, I won't tell you what to do. That would be dishonest. Every life is complicated. But I will say this. Neutral is not the same as peaceful. Comfort is not the same as connection, and time does not wait for clarity. I kept thinking there would be a better moment to address the quiet between us. After the kids grew up, after the promotion, after the mortgage was paid, there was always an after. Then there wasn't. If this story stirs something in you, don't ignore it the way I did. You don't have to make dramatic changes. Just don't lie to yourself about what you feel. That's where the real erosion begins. I sit now in the same house with the crooked mailbox. The paint is peeling. My hands shake when I pour coffee. Some mornings I talk to Margaret out loud. I tell her about the weather, about the grandchildren. I hope she felt loved, even if I didn't always know how to love her properly. That's the weight I carry. I was married for 52 years. We built a life. We raised good children. We did many things right. But love should feel warmer than obligation. At 88, that's what I finally understand. And understanding this late is a quiet thing.